Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Chances are you may have clicked on this video and you're thinking it's going to be something else. So if you imagine you're going to be watching a video about, how to get along with that problematic player at the table, this ain't it. Mostly. So in my rather long, verbose video about what would a game that looked just that was designed just for me look like, I left out one thing, and I talked about the first cut of the video, and that one was terrible. Imagine if there was one that was worse than the one I actually put up. Uh, but I'm glad I kind of left it out because it's something that's cool to talk about now. As I posed that question to various people, at the end of my video, if you made it that far, or when I linked it to the Facebook groups, I asked, well, what would a game that was designed just for you? What would that look like? And a lot of people did what I expected they might do, where instead of answering, it would look like this, like in these domains, this would be what I would like here, 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 and here. I want this much immersion, this much, you know, uh, this amount of rules, whatever it is. Instead, a lot of people said, well, I like this game. I like World of Darkness. I like, whatever. And I could have done something like that and say, oh, I like Lamentations of the Flame Princess. That was written just for me. That's perfect. But I wanted to kind of explore it more, the question more. And, of course, a lot of people did. The other thing I expected they might do is say, oh, I know exactly, the perfect game for me I've been designing for 10 years. It's coming out soon, which, I kind of expected that. But, I think sometimes it's more instructive for us to really look and deep and see what our priorities are and what our tolerances are in the various domains, because I talked about in the other video, and I'm not going to go about my preferences again, my preferences, too much. Really want to make it more of like a generalized video. But what about our tolerances? Well, if you have this domain, like you say, okay, well, I want specific amount of rules medium. Well, what does that mean, and how much leeway are you given there? How many rules? How complicated does it have to get before you say, okay, well, that's it, we're out of the range, and how simple can it get before you say you're out of the range? So I took my trusty American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, the biggest one I've got, so it's got to be the most accurate, right? And let's see, what does it say for tolerance? Among other things, it says leeway for variation from a standard, or the permissible deviation from a specified value of a structural dimension. And I just looked some other dictionaries, and they say similar things. It doesn't just have to be structural. But anyhow, so you've got all these different design elements of your game or your game experience. You know, what, which one of these axes are you willing to tolerate a good amount of deviation on, and what ones are you pretty firm? Like, I want it just like this. And these are questions that I think we need to ask ourselves every once in a while. What are the priorities? We all have our preferences, but what are we okay with having a little bit of leeway on? And this goes back to compromise too, because you're going to sit down with other people. It's not just going to be a game you play by yourself in isolation. This is a role-playing game. There's going to be other people involved. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty boring. Uh, so, when you're looking at things like that, okay, with rules, how much leeway are you willing to have in terms of like your sweet spot when it comes down to like the amount of immersion at the table? How much out of character are you willing to tolerate? If people get completely into character and never get out, and it gets a little creepy, it would be for me. How much of that? At what point does that become too much for you? Uh, these are questions I think we all need to ask when it comes down to oh gosh, let me think. Now I'm drawing a blank. But any number of design elements of a game in terms of like, hey, as far as is injuries depicted realistically or more open-ended or kind of like abstract, like the hit point thing. Like, what are your tolerance levels of that? In terms of dice mechanics, do you want them to make perfect sense and be perfectly mathematical, or do you want them to be kind of more abstract and representational? I'm looking at the a Circle of Hands game uh, that that RuneSlinger kind of turned me on to recently. I got to stop talking to people that turn me on to cool games, but I'm looking at that one a little bit, and I have yet to really dissect the mechanic, just because I have to do that. But I'm pretty sure so far I like what I've seen of the game in general, but I have to take a look at that and see, is this going to is that going to be within the tolerances that I'll allow a mechanic to operate in. So, I think when it comes down to it, I guess my point is, if I have a point with this at all, as you're looking at not only what would be the ultimate game for you or the game that it was designed directly for you, but when you actually have to sit down and compromise or have a discussion with people and say, okay, what game are we going to play and how are we going to play it? How much, are you willing to compromise? What your tolerances are in these various domains? Where are you going to be sticking, or sticking to your guns and say it's this really small tolerance, and where is a little bit more open-ended? What are your priorities for your not only just game design, but your gaming experience? What are you willing to settle for? What aren't you willing to settle for? Or is it really settling? Are some things just simply not that important? You have your druthers, but it's going to be okay. It's much more important to have people all be serious or all show up on time, or that you want something that's going to be very narrative, or whatever it might be in your case. So, what are your tolerance levels? Can you tolerate this? Do you find this tolerable? Talk to you later.